Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
All right, welcome to episode 59 of the podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Rohr.
And I'm Laura Sturm, and this is the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, in case you're curious. So we have a few things to talk about. We'll start with the easy stuff. There's a new meet that's added to the Georgia calendar, which is the Georgia State Championships. Woohoo! February 19th and 20th of 2022 in Sewanee, Georgia.
Yeah.
The big thing that we need to talk about is the USA Powerlifting update that came out last week, that USA Powerlifting is immediately suspended from the IPF for drug testing. So I'm going to read part of the press release, but you can find the whole press release on usapowerlifting.com. USA Powerlifting received judgment from the IPF doping hearing panel, which wasn't even really a panel, it was one person. Despite our plea to allow nominated athletes to compete, much like the IOC and IPF did for Russia, the IPF has denied athletes the right to compete. We are essentially being suspended for too much drug testing and not for doping violations. A 12-month suspension for all USA Powerlifting members from the IPF competition is effective immediately. The suspension only affects the IPF events and all positions held in the IPF and does not impact local, national, or our pro events. So, yeah, you can tell I'm a little heated over this. I'm pretty sure Josh Rohr is.
Yeah, very.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy. One thing I want to start with, because a lot of people have been asking these questions, like it doesn't affect anything at the USA Powerlifting level. So everybody that signed up for a competition, in USA Powerlifting, it's business as usual. A lot of people are asking like, well, does that mean that my meet's canceled? No. Everything is the same at the USA Powerlifting level. So I want to make sure that people understand that. So anyway, the part I want to make clear though is like, we're trying to explain, I guess, the bullshit of it all that the IPF is doing here. So essentially, if we look at Russia, their RUSADA, which is the Russian anti-doping whatever thing, they are suspended from competition because of essentially corruption with their drug testing, cover up and stuff like that. But their Russian lifters are still allowed to compete at both the Olympics and IPF Worlds under the Russian Olympic Committee, not as Russia, right? Well, everybody knows they're Russia. And the further part that pisses me off is part of the Court of Arbitration decision with WADA versus RUSADA says that, lifters competing independently, I'll just read it for you. So this is referring to Russia. If the uniform contains or displays the name Russia in any language or format, the words neutral athlete or an equivalent must be displayed in English in a position and size that is no less prominent than the name Russia. Well, I just watched the IPF Sub-Junior, Junior, and Master Worlds that they actually just finished up a couple days ago. And there are Russian lifters that are on the podium in first place wearing their Russian uniform, business as usual. And the results say RUS, which has always been the abbreviation for Russia, and not ROC, which is supposedly what they're supposed to be using. So basically, business as usual, Russia's allowed to compete. But the kicker of it all is, based on this judgment from this hearing panel, the U.S. lifters that were nominated are not allowed to lift, even as independents. They're just not allowed to compete, period. So, we drug tested too much, essentially. Don't have a big scandal going on. We're not cheating the system, and our lifters don't get to compete, whereas Russia does. It's a double standard. It's not right. And it's irritating, to say the least. And honestly, man, I feel for our lifters because they are caught up in this. They earned the right to compete. They did nothing wrong. our organizations don't see eye to eye. The precedent is there that lifters could still compete independently, but apparently that is not being allowed because the IPF
Right.
said so.
So let's get into it, because if you've been living under a rock or just not really paying attention to all this stuff, you could definitely not understand all the nuances on this. So Russia got suspended for bad corruption. Like, if anybody hasn't heard about this, watch the movie Icarus, and it goes way into everything that has happened in the past and is still going on, which is basically state-sponsored doping being fixed. I mean, it's pretty bad. And in the past, there have been people in USA powerlifting in a world event that have been caught doping. It's happened, right? And there's even so many doping violations that you're allowed to get as a federation within a certain amount of time. And if you get too many of them, then your federation gets out. Times where we got kind of close to that because doping happens. People still do it, right? And probably always will, sadly. But we're not being kicked out for doping.
Right. That's the part, like, which
gets me mad.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, again, this is me speculating. It's almost like, it's back to the, going back to the comparison of even like COVID. Like, people were saying, well, if we test less, there'll be less positives, right? The numbers will go down. Well, no shit. It's the same, it's kind of the same thing. If you're not testing people, you're not going to be testing, you're not going to be getting as many positives because you're not doing as much testing. It's I don't know if it's fudging the numbers to make it look better to the IOC or what, but the whole point of drug testing is to catch cheaters. And, the fact that there are positive drug tests and we're catching people, I think, is proof in the pudding that the drug testing is doing its job. It doesn't mean, there's more people cheating. It just means that we're doing a better job catching the ones that are cheating.
Right. So why does the IPF want everyone to only use WADA for everything?
Well, so that's the thing. WADA testing is third party, meaning the organization has no input or, I guess, inside information as to who gets tested, when they get tested, things like that. So it's completely hands off. Now that concept, I don't disagree with. Like, I think it's a great way to do it. It keeps it keeps the I guess the transparency of, the organization has no input, right? We don't know what's going on. We can't, fudge the numbers or anything like that. Like, that makes sense, right? I get it. Now, the issue is to drug test through WADA third party is almost like tenfold the cost, right? That's one of the issues. So to do the same level of drug testing that we're doing, we basically need to expand our drug testing budget tenfold. I don't know if that's exact figures. It's right around there, which is it's just not possible financially. But again, I still get it at that point. The issue I have is if we do third-party WADA testing, bring in, USADA or, another WADA accredited testing company to come in and drug test at the national level, any national level and up, and only do that, that is WADA compliant. That means they are only testing national level and higher. We're not testing anybody at the local level. That is WADA compliant because all of our drug testing is 100% WADA compliant. Now, the part that I have an issue with is if we do that exact same thing, only do WADA testing at the national and higher level, so we have no input on any of that. But in addition, we do our own drug testing at the local level, which again is more drug testing. That makes us not WADA compliant. And that is essentially why we are suspended, because we refuse to stop doing our testing at the local level because it's not authorized by the IPF and it's not considered WADA compliant. So essentially they're saying that we have a choice, right? We can stop testing at, well, I guess there's three options. We can do all the testing top to bottom, like we're currently doing using WADA, but again, that is financially not a possibility. Option two is we become WADA compliant by only doing WADA testing. Doesn't matter how much we do, just as long as all the testing we do is only WADA compliant.
Right. And we wouldn't be doing it.
And we wouldn't be doing it, right? We wouldn't be doing it, but it would be testing at our events. And there's no minimum that we have to do there. But we would, we propose that we do all of our national level events third party, which again, that is okay. But as soon as we start testing ourselves at the local level, we as an organization become non-WADA compliant, therefore get suspended. And I cannot understand how that's okay. I get the idea that we want to be WADA compliant, but their argument to that is that we would be essentially having a conflict of interest and potentially allowing lifters to cheat. Well, if we're still testing at the top level, the national level and up, third party, we're hands off on that. So you're essentially saying that we're going to pay money to drug test our lifters at the local level to help them cheat, to make us not WADA compliant, where we could just not test at all, not pay the money to do that ourselves, and be WADA compliant. It doesn't add up. It's not reality, and I don't think people understand the whole situation. Like it's very frustrating. We are implementing drug testing at the local level to ensure a clean platform. Like that, point blank. There's no argument you can make that that's not the reason we're doing it.
So we're suspended for not being WADA compliant, which makes it sound like we're being suspended for failing drug tests.
Right.
I mean, it really does make it sound that way.
Right. It does. And that's even more of the frustrating part, because that couldn't be further from the truth of what's actually happening. We don't want to pay the money. Well, we can't pay the money to drug test at every level third party. Like it's just financially, it does not add up. We can't do it. And the argument is like, well, other organizations are WADA compliant. Why can't we be like other nations? Well, if you look at other nations, a couple things, they're not running the number of meets that we are every weekend. Right. So just by sheer numbers, these testing organizations don't even have the staff, if they wanted to test every competition that we run. And that's only powerlifting. That's not even other sports that WADA essentially has to drug test. That's the first thing. And the second thing is like countries, other organizations or other nations, I guess, they're WADA compliant because they only test the top tier, or they don't drug test at all. That's the other thing. 0 drug tests. Well, that still means 100% of the drug testing you do is WADA compliant, even though it's 0. So it's just, it really is a stamp, that means nothing. WADA compliant. It means It doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, and if you think about it, like say we said, okay, we'll only let you do the drug testing. We'll be WADA compliant. We will stop testing at the local level, and we will stop, testing when American records are set, as an automatic thing, because that's part of it. They get to select who gets tested. And we're just going to not test the local level. Does that result in more drug use or less?
I mean, you tell me. If you can compete at a local level and not get drug tested, and yeah, absolutely. I think I should answer that clearly, just in case anybody's confused. Yes, that would result in more people using drugs, because there's no deterrent to it. For a fact, if we don't drug test at the local level, you can show up taking everything in the world that you want, break American records at the Georgia State Championship, for example, and then not go to nationals where you could be drug tested. So you can essentially have a situation where people are lifting locally, all gassed up, breaking American records and things like that. And then the lifters that compete at nationals, are getting drug tested, and may end up lifting less than those local lifters just and not able to rightfully break the records and hold the records. But not only that, like aside from the top level, like those records and everything like that, as a we'll just say the average lifter, like they deserve to compete on a clean platform against other average lifters that are clean. Like that's what USA Powerlifting is about from day one, is a clean platform top to bottom. So, if we do go that route, we're not going to go that route. But if we were to go that route, that's essentially saying, well, we no longer care about a clean platform at the local level. Your average lifters, do what you want to do. And that's not what USA Powerlifting is about.
Right. So the IPF wants to get into the Olympics badly, and that's why they're doing this.
Yeah, they want that.
That's essentially why they're doing this.
That's
into the Olympics.
That's their reason. Yeah, correct.
So, okay. So say I am an organization that's WADA compliant, like USA Weightlifting, drug-free. No, I mean, they are pretty well known, I hate to say it, USA Weightlifting, for having a lot of doping that's going on that isn't caught. And until it's, way too far, and then is it even caught then?
Yeah. And I think I would say, especially at the IWF level, maybe not, I hate to say USA Weightlifting per se, but, weightlifting as a whole, yeah, there's a drug problem. And even other sports, like I don't want to name too many, but like any other strength, like sport, I think there is the allure of getting an advantage by using drugs. Well, the less deterrence you have, the more likely you're going to have people taking that risk, because the less testing you have, the less likely you are to get caught, and, that's taking the moral and ethical part of it out. Like, I think a lot of us would never do that just from an ethical standpoint, like competing in, avenues that are supposed to be drug free. Like, if I know I can get away with cheating in a drug free organization, I'm still not going to, from an ethical standpoint. Some people will, right? So we can't rely on the ethical, I guess, the ethical part of it to keep people clean. Like, people are going to cheat, and it's our responsibility to catch them. And that's the whole point of drug testing. It's not to have a rubber stamp of being WADA compliant, is to fucking catch cheaters.
Right. Because people, and especially in strength sports, like you said, they want to be bigger, stronger, faster, better. And, oh, hey, if this little supplement helps me, maybe it's not a steroid. Maybe it's, a supplement that's heading in that direction, though. That would be something that would be caught. I mean, there's plenty that will still get you. Yeah, it gets me really angry.
Yeah. And, part of the argument too, and I'm not going to harp on this too much, but like, a lot of the testing that is done at the local level is not a full WADA panel, meaning there are certain things that don't get tested for, it's primarily a steroid panel and things like that. At a lot of the local meets, right? Well, that's still catching people that are using testosterone or, steroids. But the argument is, well, that's not testing good enough. But you're also saying, like, not testing at all is okay. Like, isn't it better to, even if it's not the gold standard of testing, we're still catching cheaters. That's still better. And that's still a deterrent, knowing that, we are testing at those. I don't know. I can't get my mind around how it makes any sense.
And let's talk about the local testing that we do. So it is run by us. We get to randomly select who's being tested. Our doping officers are, our state referees, and, they're officials within USA Powerlifting. And then those drug tests are taken and processed in the back room. Oh, wait, they're not. They're actually sent to a laboratory where there's an A and B sample. And if it comes back, there is a process that goes through. So it's not like us going in our back room and cooking up and somehow going, oh, this person wait, drug tests only find failures. So I don't.
Right. So again, I don't get it. Like, and let's be honest, like, administering a drug test is not rocket science.
It's not.
It's really not. You observe the collection, make sure that nothing fishy is going on. The athlete's handling everything. The athlete signs off that they, handled everything. Nobody, put anything in the bottle or anything like that. The seals were not broken on the initial samples. They selected the sample kit that they're using. It was not tampered with. I mean, it's really, if you follow the procedures, which again, they're very clearly written that all of our drug testing officers, abide by, you really can't mess it up.
So if a doping officer were to mess up a drug test, does that help the athlete in any way?
I mean, theoretically, like if they mess it up where like they don't seal it and all the urine leaks out, then you can't mark it down as a past drug test necessarily. It would be like you didn't complete it. So in that situation, yeah, like if that athlete happened to be cheating and they dodged a bullet there, but like to say that our officials are going to intentionally make sure that this lifter's drug test gets tampered with or whatever, that's not happening. Like I want to catch cheaters. Like they don't need to be in USA Powerlifting if they're taking shit and trying to cheat, like point blank. And I think 99.99, hell, I'll even say 100% of people in the organization feel that way. So I'm not about to let somebody cheat. Like I just can't get my mind around that. Like I don't see how. And I guess when you come from a Russia or something like that has state sponsored doctoring of the results, like that's the mentality, is like cheat, win at all costs. It's different here. Like our goal is to like get rid of people that are cheating, period. Like, so I don't know. It's just it's different philosophies, it's different ethical standards, and it just doesn't align with what USA Powerlifting believes, I guess. And It's sad.
The one of the things I saw on them internets, on Facebook specifically, was like a new athlete saying, "Oh man, I just signed up for USA Powerlifting for a local meet, and I'm so disappointed that this federation is now cast out of the IPF." How would you answer that?
To me, I would say the majority of the lifters, especially a new lifter, unless you're some kind of like freaky athlete, like you're not likely to go to IPF Worlds in your first few years of competition anyway. And the whole point is competition. Like lifters that start, new lifters, I mean, they compete at a local level, might get fifth place at the local meet. I mean, the depth of competition that USA Powerlifting has is, in a lot of ways, deeper than what you get at IPF Worlds anyway when you get to the national level. If you look at our Raw Nationals, like many years, a lot of our top three lifters, again, top lifter goes to Worlds, the top three, any of them likely would win IPF Worlds, in some of those weight classes. So the competition, I think, that USA Powerlifting has is second to none, standalone. So, yeah, it's cool to go to IPF Worlds and compete at the international level. And I think it's becoming even more clear that that's not a level playing field. Lifters are probably getting away with doping at the international level. So, yeah, I think on one hand, it's a loss for our top tier lifters, but I think, what percentage of our lifters are actually going to Worlds? And the flip side of that too is like the amount of money that USA Powerlifting is now able to save from paying the IPF fees to be participatory can go back into the events, go back into the membership. So I see it as I guess we can say somewhat of a blessing in disguise. Like we're now able to put a much bigger focus on our lifters, that are in our organization and from top to bottom. So,
it sounds like making lemonade out of, when life hands you lemons type of things.
Yeah.
But, I feel bad for the national team members that are, slated to go to Worlds, which wasn't too far in the distance. And now that can't go.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's the part that's really the sour grapes of this whole thing, is like the lifters are the ones getting getting screwed by the IPF, because Russia, I mean, again, if they didn't let Russia do it and they say we can't do it either, I can at least kind of get it, right? But the fact they're letting Russia lift anyway and not letting the US lifters lift is a complete sham.
Yeah, it's shit. It's
Yeah.
just not right.
Yep.
And then to see the Russia on the podium with Russia proudly displayed when they're
right. In the
That's
results,
not
on the results is, the Russia RUS, which is the abbreviation that they've used every year for the Russia team. Exactly the same.
Right.
Like,
Did the IPF just forget?
I'm sure
I
they,
mean,
I'm sure they conveniently forgot. Yeah.
right.
I don't know. It's just,
Yeah.
it is a clear
So-
bias, and it's frustrating.
I saw something about what you were talking about, that the USA Powerlifting said that, yeah, we can take all those funds and now put that to some pro events. Can you talk any more about that?
Yeah. We didn't even mention that yet, did we? Yeah. So,
No, didn't.
yeah. So one thing that USA Powerlifting is also releasing is kind of a pro series. It's basically going to be a series of events where athletes, I can't release too many details because we're kind of throwing out some teasers here and there over time. But we do have a well-structured plan in place for that. And that was going to happen regardless. Like that was something that USA Powerlifting was going to release regardless of what the IPF did with our national teams and things like that. So, I don't want people thinking like, oh, this is in place of worlds. Like this was happening anyway. But I think it's a way for some of our top tier lifters to make some money, right? So, basically it's a series of events throughout the year, and you get so many points for placing at each of these selected pro meets, and at the end of the year or the end of the series, whoever has the most points wins we'll call it the grand prize, which is an extra big payday. So it's you can win money at each of the individual events, but the big money is goes to the person that compiled the highest amount of points over the series.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it should be pretty neat. Again, I really want to go into detail because it's pretty cool, but I can't really say yet.
Sworn to secrecy so far.
Yeah. It'll
Yeah,
be
so,
the details will be coming out soon through USA Powerlifting.
Awesome. I would say that anybody who has questions about the suspension and how it's being perceived, what should they do with those questions, Josh?
I think reaching out to your state chair is probably a good start. Athletes reps would be a good start. I'd say reach out to me directly. I mean, I guess I'll say that, but I've been getting calls, emails, a lot of them. And that's fine. Like I do want to answer those questions, but I can only take so many calls and answer so many emails in a day. I still have a job, right? But I'm doing my best to get back to everybody. But I think I guess reading the releases too, like people see the headline and make their assumptions and don't read the 4 paragraphs that follow. That I would start with that, because we are, as an organization,
clickbait of USA Powerlifting suspended.
Yeah.
And
what? Oh man.
the actual why? What's going on?
And the organization is putting out the details. Like we're making sure everybody gets the full story. But the key with that is you have to read it. Like we can't use mind inception and just put it in your head. You have to actually read it. That's the flaw.
There is that. And, with the internet, anything that takes more than 15 seconds is very hard. Yeah. Any messages to get across. So anyway, let's move on. Let's go on to the funner stuff. That's we couldn't avoid the elephant in the room with all that's going on. Oh, and the last question I'll have, sorry. Some of us were talking about this, like USA Powerlifting had a press release. What did the IPF say?
They haven't said anything. My assumption is they just figured we would say, oh man, they're serious. We're going to comply. That's my assumption. I don't think they really thought we would stand on our principles. And you know, we're not going to stop drug testing. Like that's just the bottom line. And here we are. So
Man, wouldn't it be cool if someone from the press reached out to the IPF and said, "What's your statement?"
Yeah. And again, though, even that, they're just going to say we are not.
They're not WADA compliant.
We're not WADA compliant. Well, you do a quick Google search of WADA. Oh, they're the gold standard of drug testing internationally. Oh man, USA Powerlifting must be doing all kinds of stuff.
Right.
That's the frustrating part is what's perception and what's reality are very, very different things.
Yeah. Kind of sad.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to move into fun things now. So tournament voting for 80s music, one hit wonders.
Oh yeah. So we had 4 matchups this week. The compiled list of top 5 one hit wonder songs. So let me explain how we set up the tournament. We had 12 people, first of all. Last time we did a tournament, we ranked everybody randomly. This time I used a system to rank people. The top 4 ranked lifters got a bye week last week, so they won't actually compete until next week on Friday, or this week, I guess, Friday. But anyway, how I ranked people, everybody that had a full list of 5 songs that were not disqualified, they got the top rankings. And then the tiebreaker there was who placed the highest in the previous tournament. So I believe Chris Elmore was ranked number 1, and Laura, I believe you were ranked number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, that's all right. You still got a bye week. And then the next level down was everybody that only had 1 song disqualified were the next highest ranked. Then everybody that had 2 songs disqualified were the next. And then the tiebreaker there was if, for example, if 2 people had 1 song disqualified, if your number 1 song was disqualified, you would rank lower than somebody that had their number 2 song disqualified because you put more stock into that song that got disqualified. That's how I did the tiebreakers. It's kind of a system I made up. I think it's pretty good, but whatever. At the end of the day, everybody, to win, you have to compete against everybody else at some point anyway. Oh, and I guess I should announce, we announced it on social media, the winner of the tournament, this top 5 list tournament, gets a free bottle of BCA Extreme, compliments of Quest Nutrition and Athletics. So Sherman has agreed to donate a bottle to the winner, and we will ship that out to you if you're not local at our cost. So completely free bottle thanks to Quest.
Woohoo.
Anyway, all right. The breakdown of the voting, you can vote on the PL Ballads podcast and the Team Roar Instagram stories every Friday. The first matchup was Eric versus Stacy, and the winner of that will move on to face Chris Elmore in round 2. On the Team Roar Instagram, Eric had 13 votes. Stacy had 8. On the PL Ballads podcast, Eric had 3 and Stacy had 7. So the final tally is Eric moving on to face Chris by a score of 16-15. Super close.
Ooh.
Yep. Second matchup was Wade versus Amy, and the winner moves on to face Cindy Yeager. On the Team Roar Instagram, Wade had 7, Amy had 12. And on the PL Ballads podcast, Wade had 6 and Amy had 5. So the total is Amy moving on to face Cindy by a score of 17-13. And the crazy part here is Amy had 3 of her songs disqualified. She was actually the number 12 ranked list, but apparently the 2 songs that she had were pretty kick-ass because she moved on. So
very nice.
That's why we do the vote. The third matchup was myself versus Chris Peterson, and the winner actually moves on to face you, Laura. So on the Team Roar Instagram, I had 11, Chris had 10. On the PL Ballads podcast Instagram, I had 4, Chris had 7. Damn it. That means I lost by a score of 17-15. So wow. Congratulations, Chris Peterson.
Early elimination.
Yeah, man, I can't win one of these for my life. So anyway, Chris, you're facing Laura Sturm next weekend. Friday. I'm sorry. Gary versus Ben. Team Roar had Gary at 11, Ben at 10. PL Ballads podcast had Gary at 5, Ben at 5. So this one was also super close. Gary moves on to face Jim Battenfield by a score of 16-15. This is some pretty close voting.
Well, Ben only had like 2 songs that remained in his top 5.
Yeah, Ben also had 3 songs disqualified.
Yeah. So,
but anyway, super
boy.
close voting. It was pretty fun. So don't forget, voting is going to be this Friday again. You can vote twice, once at Team Roar and once at PL Ballads podcast.
Awesome. Well, and I did talk last week about how I maybe set up some fake Instagram accounts to vote in the tournament, but I also had an admission from Chris Elmore that 12-year-olds were used on social media. So we will never know who really won. So I told Chris, yeah, this time if we go head to head, he's going down.
Yeah,
because I'm going to recruit some 12-year-olds.
Yeah, the 12-year-old army, man, got to get him.
And he could create some fake Instagrams.
Yeah, hey, whatever.
All right. But hey, at least we're water compliant here.
Yeah. Well, we don't have rules against that technically, so you can do whatever you want.
So going to move on to the powerlifting situation. Here we go. So you and your 3 training partners walk into the gym to train. And I just see this like in slow motion, you know. There's only one person in the gym and they're playing their Neil Diamond greatest hits. Yes. You and your training partners have a playlist ready to go for your heavy squat day. Oh, do you have the right to change the music because there are 4 of you? Does the person that was there first have the right to keep music? Who has dibs on the music? How do you handle this situation?
First of all, I don't know why anybody would want to change Neil Diamond. Let's start with that. True. Secondly, I don't know what the rule is here. I think, obviously 4-1, if you all 4 want to play your playlist, like there's merit to that. But at the same time, like the other person was there first and already playing their music. So I think again, you can always ask, right? Do you mind if I change the music? I mean, if the lifter's like the other lifter that's there is already like super into their workout, they might even be done by the time you get to your heavy stuff. So I think the communication is the key there. If you just walk in, change the music, be like, hey, dude, we're training heavy and there's 4 of us, that's not cool. Right. So I don't know. I think this is more of just like a common sense, common courtesy type thing. Just ask, be a decent human being and don't be a jerk, Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, being a douche is probably the least likely. No, the most unacceptable thing to do. Don't just go in and rip their music off. I mean, ask. I mean, and it may, by asking, you might find out they're like, oh, is Neil Diamond even on? They might not even be listening to the music.
Yeah.
So don't assume that they have it on just for them. And, maybe that's what they need for their heavy squat day. And just because it's your heavy squat day doesn't mean like you get to override it. And I will admit, sometimes that's why I came in early for training so I could put my music on first.
I know a lot of people who do that. And that's kind of, so I will say like, that's kind of what I go by for the group sessions that I coach. One of the main reasons is to get people there on time.
If you're the earliest one there gets to put on their music.
Yeah. So show up on time, get there early.
Or get there really late because your music's not being played.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. All right, we're going to move on to the new lifter tip. So tip for the day is a lifter's total is the sum of their best squat plus bench plus deadlift. The highest total in a weight class wins. Your personal record total is more important than a personal record squat or a bench or a deadlift individually as individual lifts. Agree or disagree?
I agree. And that's not to discredit the importance of a personal record. I think the point of this is really to emphasize that you may I see a lot of lifters overlook a personal record total because they're shooting for a PR squat, bench, and deadlift, and they miss all 3 because they're a little bit out of their range. But if they would have went with what they could have done on squat, bench, and deadlift, they would have hit a PR total easily. And I think people just don't think about that. They think, oh, PR squat, PR bench, whatever. And I guess the point I was wanting to make here is that pay attention to that, because at the end of the day, total is what matters. Yeah, PR squat's cool, PR deadlift's cool, whatever. And I'm not taking away from that, but sometimes you have to look at it objectively and realize that a PR total is in the cards if you play them right.
Right. Well, and I think the total is probably not as sexy, right? It doesn't look as good on Instagram. Like, hey, I PR'd my total. A lot of people look at it and be like, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not as maybe social media friendly, and maybe just a little conceptually not as friendly. Like, it's not maybe as sexy. Where a PR squat, like, people understand that. That's a little more there. So, but the total is what wins meets. At the end of the day, you know, you might come in with a silver when you could have got gold.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, just to put it in a little different perspective, like people will claim, you know, you can claim a PR squat, bench, or deadlift in the gym. I mean, I don't necessarily claim those, you know, as whatever, but I think you can still make an argument for those, like, and count them as a PR. You can't really count a PR gym total, I don't think, as easily, because of the, you know, the weigh-ins, you know, just all the, you know, the judging, things like that. So you have fewer opportunities to hit PR totals because, you know, we're only counting those in the gym, or I'm sorry, we're only counting those in the competition. Right. So right. I don't know. I just think there's, to me, I value a total over an individual lift every single time, because that's what you know, again, what you said, that's what wins meets. But, you know, a lot of people just don't, I guess, pay attention to it. And I've seen and talked to a lot of lifters after the fact that, you know, they went, you know, 5 kilo jumps on all of their third attempts to hit a PR, or 10 kilo jumps, whatever it is, and missed. And then they totaled like 2.5 kilos under their PR total. It's like, well, you could have just taken a super small jump on any one of those and got a PR total just from one of them, you know? So right. If you would have done that on all three, you could have had a huge PR total, you know, and right. It's just sometimes, I think, short-sightedness, not thinking about it, not realizing the bigger picture. So again, not to take away anything from individual PRs. They are still very important and very impressive. But, you know, don't forget about the PR total.
Right. But also, again, more impressive at a meet.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool.
All right. So make sure to vote in our tournaments on Friday. Where can they find those votes?
You can find it on Team Roar Instagram and PL Ballads podcast. It's going to be in the Instagram stories. You can vote on each of them. Tell your friends, tag your buddies.
And you can click it and hold.
Click and hold if you need more time to look at it. Apparently, this is breaking news. So yeah, definitely check it out. Give your favorite list a vote. The winner gets that BCA Extreme from Quest Nutrition and Athletics. That'll do it for this episode. Don't forget to give us a follow at PL Ballads Podcast. Shoot us a DM or email us at plballadspodcast@gmail.com. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.